In May last year, I decided to do the West Highland Way. Though having previously done several fairly lengthy walks, I'd never attempted a multi-day hike like this. In this video, I'll take you through my 6-day journey of the West Highland Way and go through some tips that I found helpful along the journey. Day 1. I stayed in the Premier Inn at Bearsden the night before. This is about 15 to 20 minutes from the start of the walk. Once you get into the town centre, the start of the West Highland Way is hard to miss. I had the great idea of condensing the first 2 days of walking into one. What could go wrong? As I made my way out of Milngavie, I was starting to wonder what I'd let myself in for. For today's journey, my final destination was the Beinglass bunkhouse at Rowardenan. The West Highland Way is a walk that definitely improves as you go on. The early stages of the walk are pleasant enough, but no match for what's in store later on. My itinerary involved completing the walk within 7 days, scheduling a rest day at Tyndrum. Tyndrum is halfway, so I figured I would stay there for an extra day, as I'd never previously done any multi-day walks over a long distance. This would allow me to take stock of how I was doing, allow a bit of time for recovery, and to evaluate my life choices. Here's a look at my itinerary. The great thing with the West Highland Way is you can customise your own route plan. Some people will do the walk in 7 days, whereas others may look to do it over 10, and some may even do it over 4. My preference was to condense the first 2 days into one. This would allow me more time in the later stages of the hike, as well as allow for a rest day within my 7-day timescale. That said, 27 miles in the first day is maybe a bit too much. On the early parts of the West Highland Way, you pass through some rural countryside areas, which involves walking on some minor roads. I was now 7.5 miles into the walk and I'd arrived at the Beech Tree restaurant and cafe. Fortunately for me, it was a wee bit too early to get food. Though I didn't stop there, I'd heard a lot of good things about the restaurant and cafe. Seven and a half miles down, 19.5 to go. Stopped off briefly at Gartness as I visited my first honesty box of the day. Along the West Highland Way, you come across a variety of honesty boxes, selling everything from ice cream, bottled waters, cakes, power saws, filled rolls, sandwiches, fruit, etc. A lot of the honesty boxes will take cash, though there's always a number that will take contactless card payments also. Today I opted for Rowntree's watermelon. It wouldn't be long before I'd hit my second honesty box of the day, the Bacon Shed, which featured a good variety of cakes. So I headed onwards, wondering when I would come across my next honesty box. It was starting to become a bit of an addiction. I was now about 17 miles into my journey and was now walking the Drum to Rowardenan section of the route. I was looking forward to seeing Kinlochleven, as that would be a good marker of my progress. Honesty box number 3. I managed to resist this one as I didn't have anything unhealthy in it. At this point in the walk, I was looking for a half decent place to stop for some food. There's never a seat when you want one. My perseverance did eventually pay off though. I could now see Conic Hill in the distance. Still had a good bit of my journey to complete, but I'd made a decent amount of progress. I was now making my way up Connacht Hill, and I could see the cloud was starting to break. It was about to get a lot hotter. After descending down the hill for a while, you come to a beautiful section of woodland, which leads you nicely to Balmaha. By the time I got into Balmaha, there was barely a cloud in the sky. Balmaha was buzzing with people, all enjoying the nice weather, people outside enjoying food and drinks in the beer gardens. I, on the other hand, couldn't hang around, as I still had 7 miles to get to the bunkhouse in time for check-in. So this was the final stretch. After my brief pit stop at Balmaha, I headed back on the trail. Just after this point that my legs were just about ready to quit. I was still a good bit away from the bunkhouse, but I was now struggling to walk properly. Maybe attempting 27 miles in one day wasn't such a great idea. I ended up slowing right down to a snail's pace, and then start to use my walking poles similar to crutches. My pace had dramatically dropped, but was still going forward. Amazingly, after half an hour or so of plodding forward, my legs, feet and knees had managed to recover, and I got my second wind. Putting physical fatigue to one side, I have to say the section between Balmaha and Rowardenan is absolutely stunning. I was regretting having to rush this bit. Sights were something else. Finally reached Rowardenan. The bunkhouse wasn't far now. It's more than an hour over my check-in, though I'd contacted a couple hours before. Thankfully they were able to accommodate my late arrival. Tip: always let your accommodation know in good time if you're running late. What a day. I got in about 9 o'clock, absolutely shattered, but I had made it. The next day would be significantly shorter. Thank you. Day 2. I got up early to cook some pasta for lunch. There's not many places to grab lunch on today's route, plus I was preferring a fairly quick and easy lunch option. I got my things together and headed back on the route. Metres into my walk, I'd come across my first honesty box of the day. I wish I'd seen this before I made my pasta. Today's route is Rowardenan to Inverarnan. The majority of the route involves walking along the banks of Loch Lomond. More notably, today's route would almost be half the distance of yesterday's, at 14 miles. Two main options for this section, the high route and the low route. The high route is the easier of the two, whereas the low route involves more effort as there is a mixture of terrain. I took the low road. As you can see from the footage, the low route is quite varied. It goes up and down and alongside the banks of the loch, over various obstacles, tree roots, boulders, etc. Really enjoying the route though, as there's a good bit of variety and certainly not boring. I was really lucky with the weather again, as the forecast was set to be warm and sunny. Not that I needed warming up. It was nice having a shorter day. All going well, I'd been in Inverarnan for about 3, which would make a nice change from yesterday. I arrived at Inverarnan about lunchtime. Inverarnan is a good milestone as it meant I was about halfway through my second day. The Inverarnan Hotel sits on the banks of Loch Lomond. It's a nice place to have a wee break. They serve food there, but make sure you check the lunchtime hours in advance. Or bring sandwiches. I didn't stop for long, just long enough to grab some lunch, top up my water. Final stage continued with what I called mixed jungle terrain. I have to say, the lot goes on for a fair bit. It is stunning though. At least 3 points in my journey where I thought I'd got to the end of the loch. Walking along the banks of Loch Lomond was beautiful though. It was time to move on. I finally got to the end of the loch. I still had a good bit to go to get the campsite. It was a good feeling to know I was making good progress. Got to Beinglass Campsite for about 3 o'clock. The West Highland Way literally goes through Beinglass Campsite, so it's hard to miss. If you do miss it though, you may want to check your map. Campsite is a great place to stop. I'd stayed there before and had tailored my route around staying there. Part of the reason for my sensible 27-mile first day. Beinglass has some great facilities. It has a really nice pub and restaurant, a small store where it has just about everything you need, falling short of supplying you with a new pair of legs. As well as the usual toilet shower facilities, they also have shared kitchen facilities. There's a good variety of accommodation on offer at Beinglass. Tent pitches, bell tents, hiking huts and lodges. I'd booked myself into one of the hiking huts. The hiking huts are fairly basic but suited my needs. After grabbing a shower, I headed over to the Stagger Inn for fish and chips and a couple of pints. Day 2 done. Day 3. I woke up to another sunny morning. Had a good sleep on the blue crash mat that was provided. Surprisingly comfy. My legs, however, very stiff from the previous 2 days. This was a wee bit concerning though. I'll just see how it went. Started off my day with a visit to the shared kitchen. Some porridge, Nutella with a side of midgie. After getting my things together, I started to ease my way into the walk. Thankfully after a while the stiffness started to subside a bit. I was now over 40 miles into the West Highland Way. Today's destination is Tyndrum. Stretch between Inverarnan and Tyndrum was a lot easier than yesterday's route, much to the relief of my legs. At this point I was just past the outskirts of Kinlochleven. There was a nice forest track you go through. very tranquil. When planning the West Highland Way, I decided to factor in a rest day at Tyndrum, as this is around the halfway point. I've never done continuous walking for several days before, so I thought a rest day would be handy, just to take stock of how me and my legs were holding up. Including a rest day obviously extends my overall time on the West Highland Way, though with some of my hiking days being fairly condensed, all going well, it would still be 7 days in total. I've now reached the outskirts of Tyndrum and just about completed today's walk. After taking the long way round to my accommodation, I was now over the halfway mark of the West Highland Way, 53 miles in. While staying in Tyndrum, I'd booked into Tyndrum lodges. Felt like luxury having my own bathroom and double bed. At 12 miles, today's route was my shortest so far. Later on I headed out to Tyndrum Inn for food and a few beers. It's great to be able to relax. I started off my day by heading to the Wheel Food Cafe. They do great breakfast there. I didn't get up to much on my rest day, but it was a good day to recharge my batteries and gave me a chance to do some laundry. Tyndrum was a great place to stay an extra day. There's a small grocery shop to stock up on supplies, laundry facilities, food eateries, there's even a masseuse to help aid with any walking injuries. After an exciting day of laundry and rest, I felt ready to resume my hike. Day 4. I made an early start to day 4, so it was an instant porridge pot for breakfast. Not great, but it did the job. Not long after leaving Tyndrum, I came across some shocking scenes of violence. Anyway, today's destination is the Kingshouse. First part of the walk, you're not too far from the road, and as the walk progresses, the path moves closer to the lower contours of the hills. The road noise fades away into the distance. Really enjoyed this section. It wouldn't be long before I got to Bridgevorkey. The total distance today is 19 miles. Fair trek, though not as long as my first day. Having reached Bridgevorkey, I was now 7 miles into today's journey. Been fairly leisurely so far, but that said, I still had another 12 more miles to go. The next part of the route involves ascending up a forestry track, which brings you views of Loch Tulla before descending to Inverarnan. There's a nice pub there. After a bit of road walking and crossing some scenic bridges, you join the old Parliamentary Road. The road was part of a government project designed and organised by Thomas Telford to replace the old military roads in the Highlands. Great work, though my feet were definitely not a fan. At this point in the walk, the landscape begins to open up, and you can see for miles across Rannoch Moor. There's some beautiful hills in the distance. Now start to hear the distant sound of cars on the A82. This meant I was getting closer to completing today's route. The Kingshouse was starting to appear in the distance. Crossing the busy A82, it was just a short walk to the Kingshouse. Made good time today, the sun had come out to greet me on my arrival. Second longest day of the trip complete. 2 days left. I'm staying at the Kingshouse bunkhouse. Has to be one of the poshest bunkhouses I've stayed in. There are good views and a really nice bar and restaurant, and you're surrounded by some amazing views, as the Climbers Bar looks directly across one of the most photographed hills in Scotland, Kinlochleven Moor. After some food, a shower and a beer, it wasn't long before I hit the hay. Tomorrow would be my shortest day. Day 5. I made an early start to the day. Getting up early now was just part of my routine. After packing my bag, I headed for breakfast. It was nice and quiet outside, with just the birds singing. Though it would be difficult to beat yesterday's porridge pot, Kingshouse breakfast had succeeded. After finishing my breakfast, I dropped my luggage off at the baggage transfer area. I was ready to return to the trail. Today's destination is Kinlochleven. At mere 9 miles, today was my shortest day on the West Highland Way. The first part of the walk takes in some great views of the iconic Kinlochleven Moor before heading up towards the Devil's Staircase. After a while, you come back to the main road before turning up towards the Devil's Staircase. If you've ever done any Munros in Scotland, then the Devil's Staircase is very easy in comparison. In that respect, it definitely doesn't live up to its name. If you haven't done many hills, better get some practice in. At 550 metres in height, the Devil's Staircase is the highest point on the West Highland Way. For the 6th day in a row, the weather was really sunny. I'm not always lucky with the weather, believe me. The last section of the walk is fairly steep in parts. And when you first see Kinlochleven in the distance, there's a temptation to increase the pace just to get to the end quicker. I got a bit too excited and sped up at some of the steeper parts, which ended up in me straining my knees. So it's good to take your time, as there's still a decent amount of walking left. I arrived at Kinlochleven around lunchtime. It was a bit strange, as for once I was too early to check into my accommodation. It was nice to be able to take some time to relax though. I booked myself a pod at the Blackwater Hostel. It's a good variety of accommodation from tent pitches, pods and the hostel itself. Today's walk had been a lot shorter, but still really enjoyable. The final stop of the day was the Highland Getaway Bar and Restaurant. Would definitely recommend. Day 6. Final day. After applying some smidge, I headed out for the last time. Destination today is Fort William. Today's walk is 16 miles long, and there's no small towns, shops or accommodation to break up the walk, unless you bring your own tent. Not long into the walk, you start to ascend high above Lochleven. There's some great views looking back at Kinlochleven. Now been walking for about 4 hours or so. Came across a nice wooded area to stop for some lunch. After a brief stop, I was back on the trail. You could start to see some ominous looking clouds coming in the distance. I'd been really lucky with the weather on the hike, so I wasn't going to complain about a bit of rain. At this point, I was starting to descend down towards Glen Coe. My 6-day journey was coming to an end. Cue the rain. I got into Fort William about 3:30. After dropping my stuff off at the hotel, headed out for some food and a well-earned pint as I look back on the past 5 days. I would definitely recommend the West Highland Way. I learned a lot on the hike, and since completing the walk, it gave me a lot of experience and confidence to do harder, more testing hikes. It's a great way to see some of Scotland's stunning locations that can only be explored on foot.